Hello, intrepid and brilliant developer. It's Rams from Dopamine Labs. Let's talk about how you're going to reinforce your users using the Dopamine API. Dopamine increases engagement, retention, and revenue by optimizing when and how you reinforce each unique user. That's what rewires their habits, that's what keeps them hooked. In the last video, we talked about picking the right user actions in your app to reinforce using the API. In this video, we'll talk about how you'll actually reinforce those actions. In this example, let's pretend that you have a button you need users to push a lot. That's your reinforced action. You'd enter that in your Submit Your Details panel of your dashboard as your action ID. But now the Dopamine API needs to know what you're going to show users as reinforcement. This determines what kind of answer we can possibly give your app each time a user performs push button and calls our API for a decision. That thing you'll show users when it's time to make them feel great for pushing the button, that's your reinforcement. So what can your reinforcement be? Anything. Anything that will bring your users just a wee bit of delight. For some customers, positive praise text made the most sense. For others, funny content or animated GIFs worked wonders. Still others use inspirational quotes and encouragement. For some customers that already had a game mechanic system in place, or were looking for an excuse to build one, bonus points and power-ups were the most natural fit for them. There's three important things to keep in mind here. First, your reinforcement doesn't need to be big. Remember, the rhythm and pattern of the reinforcement over time makes a bigger impact on user behavior than does the scale of reinforcement. In other words, it's not what you give, it's when you give it. And we've got you covered for when to give it. Second, you might already have something built in your UX that you can recycle as a reinforcement. Think about how your app currently interacts with your users. Where are you excited for them? Where does your app reach out to them directly at an emotional level? Do you have a game system already in place? For most of our customers, just minor tweaks in their existing UX let them connect pre-built components to the Dopamine API. Finally, if you're going to build a reinforcement, start small and keep it real. It's more important that the reinforcement be authentic to your app's aesthetic and branding than be over the top or elaborate. If your app doesn't have a game mechanic, don't feel like you have to introduce points. Humor or encouragement might work great. Does your app have a serious competition sports-like feel? Then don't worry about introducing humor and levity. Double down on bonus points instead. Only you will know what will make the most sense for your app and feel the most natural to your users. Remember, all it has to do is make them feel a little bit of delight. We'll optimize the surprise factor. So imagine that for your app, bonus points seem like the best little delight that you could introduce to reinforce users for pushing the button. Create a new function inside of your app that, when executed, gives the users their bonus points. Then, when a user pushes the button, your app will call the Dopamine API. We'll calculate in real time for this unique user whether or not your app should run the bonus point function right now. We'll return the answer to you instantly. In this example, yes! Now is the time to execute the function and give this user the points. That's how the API connects the action you want to increase with the reinforcement you've designed. Check the Submit Your Details panel in your Dopamine Dashboard. Remember the box that says Action IDs you want to reinforce? You filled that out with push button, your action ID for what happens when users push the button. Now we need something to use as a marker for your 2 bonus points. Just like your action ID, your reinforcement ID can be any arbitrary string, letters, numbers, underscores, and it's what we'll return to your app in real time when users push the button and make an API call to us. Of course, we won't return it every time. In fact, most of the time, we're going to return a neutral non-reward flag. Your app won't run any function that displays reinforcement in those instances. Your UX will just continue on as normal. But sometimes, sometimes, will return bonus plus 2, exactly when someone needs that hit of dopamine. Just as how you can have more than one action to improve, you can also associate more than one reinforcement ID with a given action. You can even reuse reinforcement IDs between actions and give the same reinforcements for different actions. Consider it an N-to-M mapping for the mathematically inclined of you. Okay, so at least a few of you look like this right now, and are probably thinking this right now in your head. Listen, every app is different. A great reinforcement UX for one app might not be good for another, and vice versa. You know your app better than anyone else in the world, so you know what it needs. But we couldn't leave you without something to use as a default case, just in case you needed it. So we built Basal Giflia. It's the easiest way to give your users a burst of dopamine. Working in concert with the Dopamine Kit and the Dopamine API, Basal Giflia is a no-hassle way to add delight to your app. It finds the perfect time to show each user the perfect delightful GIF. It runs in just 2 lines of code, you don't have to think of anything. Guaranteed the dankest GIFs, field tested to put a smile on your users' faces. We think you'll see a much stronger effect designing your own custom reinforcements, but if you're looking for the easiest way to get up and running fast, we think Basal Giflia will be the burst of dopamine you're looking for. Remember, if you ever need support, reach out to us using the orange chat bubble icon. Someone from our team will be available immediately over live chat, or we'll reach out to you ASAP over email. Dope. So, you've identified a user action inside your app that you want to increase. Now you've designed a great reinforcement UX, or you decided to use Basal Giflia. Now we just need to plug Dopamine Kit into your app. We'll have you up and running in just a few short lines of code. No sweat.